Welcome, dear listeners, to another chilling episode of Wicked Whispers, where the shadows come alive and nightmares whisper their secrets.
I went to high school in one of those sleepy little towns most people drive through without a second glance. Not quite suburbia, not quite farmland, just quiet. Our graduating class barely scraped 200 students. It was the kind of school where even if you didn't talk to someone, you knew their name, their face, who they hung out with. There were no real secrets in a place that small. We didn't have wild parties or thrilling drama. No shocking headlines or crime scenes. Our fun was riding bikes, tossing a football in an empty field, watching the sky get darker a little too early in the fall. It was simple, harmless, almost boring. But something dark was simmering underneath. I used to think our school was kind of special, not because it was better than others, but because we didn't really have the classic movie-style bullies. No one shoved kids into lockers or stole lunch money. Sure, people teased each other, but nothing that would leave bruises on the outside. Then there was him, the quietest kid in our grade. I'll call him Luke. He wasn't weird-looking or creepy. He just didn't talk. Ever. Most people ignored him like a shadow that moved through the halls. I had one class with him, a computer elective. It wasn't full, so there were plenty of empty seats. Luke always sat alone in the second row, farthest left. Even in a class full of strangers from different grades, nobody ever chose the seat beside him. Then, little by little, it started. The seniors began making jokes about him, mocking how silent he was. Creepy quiet, they said. Like he's gonna snap one day. The teacher, for whatever reason, never stopped it. Just smiled awkwardly and moved on. Maybe he didn't care. Maybe he was afraid too. One day, I saw it, a balled up piece of paper flung from the back of the room, striking the back of Luke's head. He turned around slowly, his expression unreadable, but something flickered in his eyes. It was a cocktail of pain, rage, and something far more dangerous, emptiness. Nobody took the blame. One senior just said, "Wasn't me," and laughed. I still remember the way Luke looked then. Like a dam holding back something heavy, cracking by the second. I felt bad, sick to my stomach even, but I said nothing. I just watched. A few days later, I saw him sitting alone on the curb after school, backpack on the ground, staring at the concrete. Everyone else was gone. I was one of the few who drove to school, and something about the way he looked, like he was waiting for something, or maybe nothing at all, made me stop. "Hey," I said. "Need a ride?" His face lit up, just slightly. As if I had flipped on a light in a dark room. He nodded. We talked on the drive to his house, a short 10 minutes, but it felt longer. He wasn't what I expected. He had things to say. And most of them were heartbreaking. He said the seniors weren't the only ones, other classes, other teachers, more of the same. He was drowning quietly in front of everyone, and nobody even noticed. After that, we said hey to each other every day. Small nods in the hallway. A few words exchanged. But when the teasing started again, I still didn't step in. I told myself I wasn't part of it, but deep down, I knew silence makes you a witness. Sometimes an accomplice. Then came the day Luke didn't show up to class. 4th period, computer lab. His seat was empty. It wasn't until 7th period that the loudspeaker crackled to life. Lockdown. This is not a drill. Everyone froze. Even our teacher looked terrified. She sprinted to the door, turned off the lights, and hissed for us to get into the corner. We huddled like animals sensing a predator outside the den. Then came the real horror. The principal's voice, trembling. There's an individual wearing a mask and carrying a large black duffel bag attempting to gain entry to the school. Nobody said it, but we all thought it. guns. Shooter. Someone we might know. The lockdown lasted 30 long minutes. Then the day was dismissed. Cops were outside. Sirens in the distance. That was a Friday. That night, I woke up to a sound. Tap. 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 Light. Repetitive. Against my bedroom window. My heart started pounding. I pulled back the curtain just a little. Someone was standing outside. Someone in the dark. Watching me. I almost screamed until I recognized the face through the glass. It was Luke. I cracked the window, just barely, and hissed, "What are you doing? How did you find me?" His voice was calm. Flat. I tried to do something bad. My blood ran cold. I didn't need to ask. I already knew. "It was you?" I asked. He nodded. "Yes." I asked him again how he found me. He said he remembered me mentioning a deli near my house. He rode around until he spotted my car. That didn't comfort me. It made it worse. He hunted me down. He asked to come in. Said he wanted to talk about what he had planned. I told him no, firmly, and with growing fear. I told him to go to the school, turn himself in. He wouldn't budge. So I yelled, "Dad," loud enough to shake the glass. That made him run. I ran to my parents' room and woke them up. My mom insisted on calling the police. When they arrived, I told them everything, what Luke said, how he found me, what he had admitted to. The police already knew about the lockdown, of course. They went to his house. But he wasn't there. He returned the next day. Or maybe they found him. All I know is he eventually confessed. He admitted to planning something awful. I heard later he was charged with making a terroristic threat. He did time. He's out now. I don't know where he is. I haven't seen him since. Part of me always wondered if things would have been different if someone had just been kind to him sooner. Maybe that's why he came to me, because I gave him a ride. Because I said hi. But that doesn't change what almost happened. He came to school that day wearing a mask. With a duffel bag. And something so dark in his mind that even he couldn't say it out loud. I still think about Luke sometimes. And every time I do, I wonder how close we came to making the news. And how close I was to being part of it. Outside the window, just a few feet from the glass, stood a man dressed in a tattered clown costume, red and yellow, faded and stained like it hadn't been washed in years. His face was painted white, with black smudged rings around his eyes, and a grotesquely wide grin painted across his mouth. But what was more unsettling than the costume or the makeup was the way he just stood there. Perfectly still. Smiling. Staring directly into our classroom. A few seconds passed before he lifted one hand and started to wave. Slowly. Almost like he was trying to hypnotize us with the motion. Some of the kids chuckled nervously, unsure whether to be amused or alarmed. Others just froze, visibly disturbed. The tension in the room thickened. Our teacher, Mrs. Riker, approached the window with a firm expression. She looked at the man for a moment, then knocked on the glass and raised her voice. "Excuse me. Classes are in session. You need to leave." Her tone was sharp, irritated. But the clown didn't budge. He just kept smiling, never blinking, never moving except for that eerie, slow wave. Mrs. Riker's demeanor changed then. She turned away, walked over to the classroom phone near the door, and picked it up. As she stepped into the hallway with the cord trailing behind her, she spoke in a hushed tone. The rest of us sat in silence, watching her through the small window in the door. A moment later, she returned, visibly unsettled, and without a word, she walked back to the window and pulled the blinds shut. But before she did, I caught one last glimpse of the clown, still standing there, still waving like he had all the time in the world. Not even 2 minutes later, the principal's voice echoed over the loudspeaker. "Staff, please initiate lockdown procedures." I repeat, lockdown now. There was a different tone in his voice. Urgency. Not panic, but something close. You could tell it wasn't a drill. Mrs. Riker immediately sprang into action. She switched off the lights and ordered all of us to get under our desks. She pulled the classroom door shut and locked it, her face now tight with concern. A few kids giggled, but most of us knew something wasn't right. I was definitely scared. We stayed like that, in silence, for what felt like an eternity. In reality, it was closer to 30 minutes. Nobody said a word. We didn't know what was going on, only that it wasn't normal. Eventually, the loudspeaker came on again. The principal's voice this time was calm. "Lockdown is lifted. The situation has been resolved." That was all we got. No details. Just that school security had confirmed the man, the clown, was no longer on the premises. Classes resumed like nothing had happened, but the atmosphere was anything but normal. Every kid was whispering about the clown during dismissal, but the teachers said very little, and the adults all looked like they were trying not to panic. Later that day, I walked home with my friend Chris. We lived just a few blocks from the school and usually took the same route. We were still talking about what had happened when a pair of 5th grade girls came running past us from behind, clearly freaked out. One of them gasped, "There's someone in the woods." Chris and I stopped and turned toward the patch of trees behind the school. It wasn't exactly a forest, just a thin strip of woods separating the back of the school grounds from the neighborhood beyond. But there, partly hidden by the tree line, was him. The clown. Same dirty suit. Same painted face. He stood still, half shrouded by branches, but unmistakable. And he was waving again. Not randomly, deliberately. Slowly. This time, directly at the 2 girls who had just run past us, like he was trying to lure them in. Chris and I didn't even exchange words. We just ran. Full speed. All the way home. I told my parents everything as soon as I walked through the door. They didn't hesitate, they called the school. Later, I heard from another kid that the police had been called again and even patrolled the woods behind the school. But they never found anyone. Nobody ever figured out who the clown was. Not a parent, not a performer, not a prankster. Just a stranger. A man in a clown suit who stood watching children behind the glass. And then returned. To this day, what unsettles me the most isn't that he was there. It's that after the school went into lockdown, after the cops were called, he still came back. And he waited. Hidden in the trees. Watching.